everyone. I'm Kim, and I'm here with Juji, Taris, Lee, and Shira. We are 5 friends, speakers, and professionals from different cultures, backgrounds, and age groups coming together to offer healing and inspiration. Today, we're talking about a sensitive topic. It's something that we all have, but we just never have enough of it. And then when we get more, we're rarely satisfied. Our culture is obsessed with it, but we never talk about it. Well, today we are going there, and I'm talking, of course, about money. What are our beliefs about it? How have those beliefs shaped our lives? How has it affected our perceptions of ourselves? So ladies, tell me, what's your earliest memory of money?
Well, I can go there for a hot second. So my earliest memory of money was when my parents decided, I think I was like 6 or 7, and my parents decided they were going to give us an allowance. And guess how much I got? Guess how much I got per week allowance?
50 cents.
$1.
Keep going.
$5.
$5.
$5, $1.50. Okay, it was a dime. 10 cents. But you know, back then, I feel like such an old person. Back then, bubble gum was just a penny. But I remember getting a dime, and it's like, of course, I had to like clean up from the table and do all the stuff for a freaking dime. And then the only other very salient memory I have about money, but it's kind of along the same lines as I'm thinking about this right now. When I was 11, there was a family that moved in down the block. They had triplets, and then they had a younger child. And my twin sister and I babysat for the triplets. They were like 5 and I was 11. And I can't even tell you how much work this woman made us do for $1 an hour. We had to bathe them. We had to help her fold laundry. And it's like, I'm actually sitting here right now going, why the hell did I put up with this shit? Like, even back then, it wasn't a lot of money. It should have been at least $2 an hour. But
Because you were 11.
That's
You
right.
were 11.
Yeah, I guess so.
You were a child slave.
Salary commensurates with experience, girl.
Exactly. But when I think about it, those were a couple of money memories that did shape some stuff that ended up happening to me later on. Interesting. Anybody else?
Interesting.
I never really gave so much thought to money, probably until I was in high school. It's probably not my earliest childhood memory of it, but I just remember in high school, my parents, we lived in a very wealthy town, and my parents, you know, if you remember from previous episodes, and you gals know me, but we immigrated here from Israel. My parents worked their butts off with a new business, and then we lived in a very big house. And I came to the realization after asking my mom about, like, you know, the house and how they pay for it and the mortgage, that I realized they had a huge mortgage on the house. They really lived a little bit beyond their means at the time. So they maxed out kind of as much as they could. And I remember kind of being nervous about that. And we lost the house.
Ooh.
Yeah. And at the time I was probably a junior or senior in high school when I started to ask all these questions. And then I went on to college studying business and realizing, like, wow, you know, they owed more than, you know, that they can afford. And, so for me, I think it shaped me in a way that had a huge influence on me being a little bit more mindful about, I didn't want to be in over my head. I didn't want to be in debt. I didn't want to. So it's kind of how I led my life. And until today, I mean, I've had debts and I have debt now too, but it's, I never let it get to the point of, you know, where I'm really feeling like I'm in a bind.
Yep. Anybody else? Juji, Kim, Taris? Juj?
I just wanted to add, like, you know, I am also the daughter of immigrants, but my parents grew up in communist Hungary. And my mom's story and my dad's story are very different. So my mom's father died when she was very young. They had nothing. It was a 1-room apartment that her and her mom and her brother shared. And my father grew up in a relatively nice apartment, and my grandfather was a dentist, and he would moonlight making dentures for people, but it was illegal to do that because communism says you can only make a certain amount of money. So they had to pretend to be as poor as everybody else in the neighborhood, which is a very strange way to grow up.
Mm-hmm.
And so these two people came together, moved to the United States. My dad had a good job, but we weren't wealthy at all. But to this day, he refuses to buy a new car. Till this day, you know, he's still very, like, he's probably still wearing sweaters that he had when I was a baby. Like, the level of frugal that he is not in line with how much money he makes, but that's how he grew up. And so my perception as a child was that we didn't have enough because we lived like we didn't have enough. So then I come to the States and I go to a very affluent school because the only thing that he would spend money on is education. So I am going to school with people who are coming to from suburbs all over Chicago. I made friends with a girl whose father had a Rolls-Royce collection. She had her own maid. She had her own floor in the house that it was a mansion. It wasn't a house in downtown Chicago. And from a very early age, it was very obvious the difference between my family and everybody else. And so I made it my mission in life to be as wealthy as those people. Nothing else mattered. I was like, this is the road to happiness. This is what I need to do and be. And that was the thought that was informing all of the decisions I made about what my career was going to be and how glamorous I wanted my life to be. And like New York City for sure was where I wanted to go. Wow. So that's my earliest childhood memory. It was pretty extreme, if you will.
It's kind of interesting because we're talking about our earliest memories about money and then how it's shaped us. So you guys are really giving us an interesting roadmap. Mm-hmm. So Kim and Taras, do you have a couple of early childhood memories about money that you want to share with us?
I think my only childhood about money, really, I was average middle-class American. From what I could remember, even though I had a nanny, it wasn't like, to me, it wasn't anything like fancy because I was still average. I wasn't like in high class or anything like that. But the only thing that really big time sticks out to me is if you wanted something, you worked for it. Like, that's it. If I wanted something, I did chores. If I needed something more, I babysat. You want something, you work for it. That's
a good lesson.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really good lesson.
It is. Kim?
I love that, Taras, because I love my sister is teaching her two little kids right now the meaning of value and money and making money and earning it. And so when my little 5-year-old nephew comes over here, he's like, what do you want me to do? What do you have for me to do? Can you give me $1? Like, he's so excited. He's
so awesome. I love that.
It's a great lesson to, yeah.
Oh, so
but so it's interesting because I grew up, so I have, like some of you guys, my parents were very opposite. So my mom, she grew up very poor, like your mom, Juji. Had nothing, had like her parents escaped the Holocaust. So when they came to New York and fled here from Czechoslovakia, they had nothing. And I think my grandfather was like a shoemaker and my grandma was like always sick. So she was always in the hospital and they couldn't really, make ends meet. And my mom had like the same winter coat for 15 years. I'll just never forget that, that one little fact about her childhood. So my mom is very frugal. She's someone she's 75 today, and for her to buy herself a shirt is like a really big deal. She just won't spend money. She'll spend it on other people, like on her family, on the grandchildren and things like that. But, she's on a very tight budget all the time. And my sisters and I always joke about how we're going to find like probably hundreds of thousands of dollars like under her mattress or like in envelopes in her drawer when she passes away, because she just won't spend it. And my dad was complete opposite. So my dad is a spender. I don't think he'll mind me sharing that because I take after both of them in different ways, and I definitely get the spender thing from my dad. But when I was younger and he was drinking, he was an alcoholic back when I was younger. He had a gambling problem back then. And so here you have, you know, my mom, who is very scared of scarcity and holding on to every penny, like her life depended on it. And then you have my dad, who's like gambling and taking all these risks. And, you know, I mean, we lost a lot of things when I was younger, and I've heard really terrible stories and stuff. So it's interesting because what I took away from my mom was that there's never enough. There's never enough. If you have a large chunk of money in the bank, just hold on to it because that's all you'll ever have. Yeah. And then what I learned from my dad, I did learn from my dad that you have to work hard to earn money, for sure. That was something that I learned from him, and I'm a hard worker. But I also learned from him something that I'm not even sure he's aware of. There's definitely some emotional issue with money, with him liking to spend, because I have it too. I get it from him. And I'm not sure if it's that he feels he doesn't deserve to have money in his pocket or in his wallet or in the bank, or if he just, you know, I don't, maybe it makes him uncomfortable in some way to like save a lot and all that, because there's definitely something there that I've felt over the years. But the big aha that I had when I was actually preparing for these questions that we were going to talk about this really sensitive topic today was that, you know, I've shared with you guys how in my family there was I was full of shame growing up because my dad was an alcoholic. So there was shame attached to that. And then I developed psoriasis when I was a teenager. So there was a lot of shame attached to that. And when I think back to money, I'm like, oh my gosh, it was always a problem. We never had enough. If anything, we were, you know, a family in debt and struggling. So I look back and I'm like, there was so much shame around money. And I just think of the word shame and I'm like, oh my gosh, what a dominant theme in my household, you know? It's amazing. And it's completely shaped the way I am with money today. And I'll get more into that later. I'll give you guys a chance to respond.
Let me tell you something, Kim. I relate to that so much, but not in the same exact way. Because, you know, last week I had my interview portion and I was talking about insecurities. And I will say that money has also been a source of insecurity for me because a couple of things come to mind. One is that whole deferring decision-making to others, right? Like I don't really have all the information I need to make a decision, so I'll just let someone else make it because I'm not trusting myself. And then also, I just forgot the other thing I was going to say, but deferring my decision-making power about money has absolutely led me down a road of, I would say, borderline catastrophe. Because it kind of stayed with me. Oh, I know what I was going to say. That my dad was so loving and giving and nurturing, but also enabling. Mm-hmm. And I see how that also played out through my adult life because I never took control of it. I never said, like, even if things were wrong, I wouldn't be like, I would, but I wouldn't like put my foot down. I didn't have boundaries around it. I'm like, this is not right. And then I found myself becoming or living with money the way I was surrounded by it, which was not that healthy, even though deep down I knew that it wasn't right. And so it's taken me a really long time to kind of get that awareness of being enabled and not trusting myself. Bad combination, really bad combination. I'm happy to report though that, you know, with all the changes that I've experienced in the last year, money is very at the top of the list of something that I am now taking control over. And boy, does that feel fucking good. No other way to say it. It just feels good.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's a huge thing, the enabling, right? Some people actually grow up in very privileged homes. The parents enable certain things to go on, spoil their kids, thinking they're doing everything they want to do for their kids. They're doing good. But the enabling really sometimes could be a real big crutch and at a disadvantage when you grow up. you know?
Right, but a lot of parents think they're doing the right thing. Like my dad being a Holocaust survivor never spoiled us, but was very much like, whatever you need, and if you're in trouble, I will save you, and I will, like, just
Absolutely.
out of love,
Yes,
not
yes.
realizing that it could potentially be damaging.
Right, right. And my parents the same way. They would rather just give to us whatever we wanted, whatever we needed, not knowing that there might be some harm in there, because I did not so much grow up feeling like, or being told like Taris did, that, you know, you want it, you work for it. You know, although there was a lot of amazing work ethic in my family, seeing my parents both work so hard, that it taught us that, but it wasn't like, you want it, you work for it. No, everything we wanted, we just asked for.
Right.
And we got it. And that's a form of enabling.
Yeah, it's true. Zhuzh, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's very interesting, and I just wanted to point it out that you used the word catastrophe around money, and you used the word saving me around the word money. And the fact that we even talk about it in terms of it having so much power over us is, you know, sort of this jumping off point of, not a mindset, it's just, it feels very significant that that's what it was that you were experiencing in terms of what you needed to shift because there was this catastrophe around money. I mean, I talked in my interview about declaring bankruptcy and how that didn't end up being the catastrophe that I thought that was like the end of the world, the end of life as I knew it. And what I realized is that the shame around that was actually all external. You know, the way people talk about bankruptcy, the way people approach that as a failure, which that was the theme, right? And I realized, first of all, when you're in bankruptcy court, you hear a lot of different people's stories, which is very, very interesting. You know, I was sitting there going, oh my God, this is going to be so shameful. People are going to hear about my story and this is going to be terrible. And then I realized, like, no, we all have had something that, and I was in a really good place. Like that bankruptcy was the best thing that ever happened to me. I have a clean slate. 7 years from now, it won't even exist. And money has just taken such a different form in my life. But hearing other people's stories made such a huge difference in realizing that it doesn't have to be this doomsday that I perceived it to be.
Interestingly, and I think we're going to wrap here for a second. Interestingly, your whole episode, Juji, was about, you think you know what success is, you know, maybe you're wrong about that. And I think that this discussion around money right now leaves room for so many aha moments to come, because like thinking this is success and it's not, for me certainly, and I think we've had some discussions around this, it's like you think you know what money is, but maybe you don't. So I think it would be really interesting to start part 2 with defining what money actually is and how all of these external, like you were talking about, all this external stuff impacts us in such a stressful, negative way, when there's a whole other way to look at it.
Well,
So
can I actually just say one thing? I think that it's a value of what we put on ourselves. Like for me, that's the correlation. You have money, you're valued higher. You have no money, you're valued lower. And I think that once you get out of that thought pattern and you say to yourself, you know what? It's not about my value. My value is in here. And once you think about that, money takes a whole different can't say that word, precedent on your lip.
What's the word you're looking for?
Precedent.
Precedent. Okay.
Precedence on your life. Thanks.
Okay. Well, precedence is a very good word
Yeah.
to also drop off on.
And I agree with Taris, and I think it correlates with our definition of abundance, where some people feel like if you have money, you're abundant, or you have abundance in your life. And that's a whole nother conversation, although it's our own perspective and our thoughts, and how much energy are we putting into money. And some of us are and some of us aren't. And I feel like really in my adult life, most of the time, I haven't put that much thought and energy into it. I care not to.
Yeah.
And you know, things work out. And I'm not saying I'm sitting on top of the world with money, and I'm not saying, but it's the value that I place on other things that's a lot more priority.
Yep.
I think that's a great place to wrap, because there's so much to talk about there. I love what you guys just said so much. Why don't we wrap it up and we'll come back in a part 2.
Perfect.
So thank you guys for sharing so much. And if you like our videos, please subscribe to our channel and be sure to let us know if you have any topic requests or questions by commenting below. And we'll see you soon. Thank you so much for watching.
Bye now.